Again, this is Jimmy Brown with Atheists Having Cocktails with Christians, part 2. So everybody watching the videos, part 1 and part 2, please hit the like button and subscribe to us. I want to, in the future, do many more artists and just kind of make this a fun, interesting thing for perspectives of everyone. So hit the button, like it, subscribe, and awesome. All right, so my first question for this is what we didn't get to last time. Tell me about Bob Beeman. What was your impression of Bob Beeman in Sanctuary? Because I never knew the guy. I heard him preach once, saw him on a couple shows. He always felt off to me. Maybe not in a Christian way, but just like he should have been with Holy Soldier. You know what I mean? He should have been. He should have been with Guardian. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like, that whole LA, fringe, white leather jacket, big poofy hair, cowboy boots. And then when it came to like the extreme stuff with you guys, in your white, tennis shoes, black, just thrashing out, I don't know. Just, it always felt like he had a weird secret agenda. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the funny thing. So, to try to summarize it briefly, I kind of touch on this in the history of deliverance on my YouTube channel. By the way, free plug there. But just to quickly summarize it, when the whole sanctuary movement started, we weren't part of it, and we weren't having any part of it. Yeah. And our reasoning for it is, number one, Chris and I, Chris, the late Chris Hyde, rest in peace, and Brian Carrillo went to another church, but Chris and I were Pentecostals, and we went to churches that actually hated what we were doing and believed what we were doing was of the devil, which was pretty hilarious. But nonetheless, when we heard about this whole movement and this whole thing, I went to visit on a Sunday, and my first experience is I was sitting next to a girl who was wearing a shirt dress, but with nothing underneath. So I mean, absolutely nothing. After church, she invited me over to her house for Bible study, and we did anything but study the Bible. So, now that's saying, of course, a lot. I've never been bashful about admitting my humanness and my humanity and what I am and who I am. But, my only issue with Sanctuary was that it was segregated. And I know that they termed themselves in the early days as kind of like a refuge for the metalheads that were thrown out of their churches and all of that. But I went to, like I said, a staunchly Pentecostal church, and I was never thrown out. Yeah. In fact, I was on the worship team for my youth group. They let me take part in everything. They just didn't agree with this particular part of who I was. Yeah. Same with Chris Hyde. Same with Brian Carrillo. Well, Brian Carrillo went to Calvary, and they totally were into the Christian rock scene and everything.
Yeah, those Calvary Chapels were pretty notorious for maybe not metal, but the harder,
Oh yeah, well, everybody knew that they started the whole hippie movement. The Christian hippie movement. Yeah. So. I wanted to meet Bob. I wanted to actually meet him, and we sat, we talked, and I instantly just bonded with him. I love the guy. Yeah. When I met him, he didn't look like the way you remember him. Okay. He hadn't put in the hair extensions yet. He just had this kind of a little afro. Yeah. We used to call it the Jew-fro. He had he had one of those, and he was kind of pudgy, and he was a great piano player and just a wonderful guy. And he actually was pastor for Whittier Assembly of God before he left that to start Sanctuary. Yeah. And I just told him, man, I enjoyed meeting with you. I think the world of you as a person, and it's nothing against your per se calling or movement, but I don't feel there's a place for us there. Yeah. And he asked why, and I said, because I feel it's segregated. I feel that it's initiating segregation and separation.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what we're trying to we're trying to go against that. We don't want to segregate and separate, because at that point we're no different than, well, that's the white church, that's the black church.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I said, I think that's where this is headed, because you guys are the heavy metal church.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be known as that.
Yeah.
And he totally respected it. I mean, he respected mine and Chris's position. And they still showed up. They still supported everything Deliverance ever did.
Yeah.
And 3-4 years later, Bob played piano and the organ at my church for my wedding.
Yeah.
My brother performed the ceremony because my brother was a pastor, but it was just really, really cool. The relationship that I had with Bob, but yeah, we were never part of Sanctuary.
Well, it's like that show that I was telling you about when I saw you guys play at this country club in Reseda with the Crucified and
right.
Few, when that kid stage dove and nailed it, and Bob's on the stage like, all right, everybody, stop what you're doing. And I'm just thinking like, man, this is what this music is like, not just for, but it was like he seemed real uncomfortable in that.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Sure. Then also the issue I had too was like, I don't know, it's like he was maybe trying to like put himself, especially, back in the day when you got your guys' tapes, there'd be that little hi, this is Pastor Bob little thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I was always
that's why everybody thought we were part of Sanctuary. But see, it's funny. I actually told this story to my nephew this weekend at a barbecue, because he always asked, what was the deal with that Pastor Bob Beeman? So it's funny that you asked this, and I told him, well, what it was is, when we first got offered a record deal, it was by Frontline, and we said no because we wanted to be with a secular label. Yeah. And we signed with Intense out of Chicago. Then they ended up selling to Frontline. Yeah. So that's how we ended up on Frontline. But Bob had went in there and basically told them that, every band on here I represent, and they're part of Sanctuary and blah, 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 blah.
But that's bullshit, though.
Yeah, that wasn't us. We weren't. And I know Bloodgood wasn't. And I know Ken Tamplin wasn't. We all loved Bob. We all respected Bob. And to this day, his homeless ministry, we donate to. I appreciate what Bob has always been about. But I just didn't dig the whole segregating. And
just for me, it just kind of felt like Bob was trying to put himself as the leader of this Southern California movement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was a part of that it looked like that. I don't think that he necessarily was trying to elevate himself that way. Everybody always looks for a leader. And I remember when the record companies, like Regency Records, because we appeared on the California Metal album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we were substitute for Vengeance because they didn't even know who we were, because they were all Sanctuary bands. And but they took one listen to Vengeance and said, no, we're not going to work with you, the John and Dino Elevante, and so they wanted a speed metal band represented, so we were called, and they liked us right away.
Nice.
And which was cool because we were voted the most popular band on that album. That's what got us a record deal and all that. It was cool. But see, when that whole thing happened, they approached Bob and they approached Sanctuary, because Sanctuary had been getting a lot of press and even in secular news. And I think Channel 4 or Channel 5 did a piece on Sanctuary where they came and interviewed them there at the Redondo Beach Sanctuary. And I mean, it was definitely an unusual time. I mean, you didn't see anything like that. And but as far as like just with Bob, I always knew his heart was great, and he was nothing but cool with me and with my wife. So and with Deliverance. So I never had issue with them. As far as but everybody else outside of the thing definitely saw him kind of setting himself up as the Pope of Christian metal.
Exactly.
And yeah, and I could see that, but I don't think he did it himself. I don't think he even promoted himself that way. I think people just looked for something to point to and say, oh, there's the leader of it.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the way it happened. But I mean, it's like, well, how does that account for Sacred Warrior out of Chicago, or Believer out of Illinois? Or all these other, I mean, they don't go to Sanctuary, so I mean, it's like, how are they involved? I mean, why are they doing what they do? Living Sacrifice out of Kentucky. So it's just it was really kind of strange. But it was like you said, for the SoCal movement, it was definitely like Bob was kind of initiated and crowned Pope of the Christian metal scene.
Well, it's like, like
he had a heart. He had a heart for it, and there's no question. He had a heart for trying to reach.
I only heard him preach once and met him like 2 times. You know what I mean? But as somebody who was wearing a Vengeance shirt, then this guy's wearing the white fringe, tassel, everything that extreme metal kids were like, this sucks.
Well, especially that was the other thing that I kind of had issue with, because like I said, when I met him, he wore a suit and had the little fro. Then within like about a year and a half, he went and got the hair extensions, which a lot of people were doing. Then he went on this diet and got all sucked up skinny, and I guess he went vegan or something. I don't know, but either way, he just started to really look the part.
Yes.
And to me, that was kind of like, I don't know, dude. I is this necessary? I mean, and like Dave Hart, who was the pastor of Sanctuary San Diego, he didn't do any of that. And of course, there were other pastors, like the Calvary Chapel pastors. I mean, they didn't all dress like hippies. I didn't expect them to wear a suit or anything, but I just kind of thought, you're kind of going a little extreme with the whole look. But I mean, at the same token, maybe what if that's who he always wanted to be, and now he was going to be that? So, and if that was it too, well then cool.
Well, I see that. If somebody came up to me, who had never had a tattoo in their life, trying to tell me about tattoos, I'd be like, what the hell? So maybe, at some point in time, looking the part brings down that walls where it's like, all right, we have that relatability. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That way it's like, why hit this church when you've already got some preacher in a suit at your other church telling you that you're wrong anyway?
Right.
I can see, looking the look, you know what I mean? To make people feel, okay, I'm really part of this. I'm not just faking. I do. And I'm sure he enjoyed the music greatly. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. I mean, and Bob always had being a musician himself, he definitely had a lot of respect for the arts.
Mm-hmm.
And he might not have been a huge fan of everything, but he like I said, heart of gold. I mean, as out of everybody that I ever met out of the entire movement, he's one of the 5 people that I could say were genuine and are genuine.
Well, that's good to hear, because I mean, there's so much ingenuine people that have, throughout the years, from the, Jimmy Swaggarts to the Tammy Faye and, the Bakers, I mean, it's an ideology I disagree with and I think is harmful.
Sure.
But, at least, you're walking the walk and living it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what I liked about Bob. And to this day still continue to love about Bob.
Nice.
And so he's a good man. He's a good man. Yeah.
All right. My next question is, especially since the enormity of what Weapons was. It's funny, I was listening to What a Joke on vinyl today and cleaning my house, and tell me where you were at that record, because it's an odd record. You know what I mean? There's some really good songs, but especially at the beginning, where, that ambient music's coming, like, dude, we're doing this again, let's just play,
Yeah.
At What a Joke, were you already starting to feel the pressure of, I don't want to do this style anymore, I'm looking to at least enhance or move on to a different horizon and maybe start being more creative?
Yes, I mean, that was definitely happening. And there's no secret, obviously, you know, and you know, everybody knows there's been a zillion members of Deliverance. So you look at our Wikipedia page and, you know, that's the whole telltale. But George joined in '89, and we'd already existed for 4 years. And then, you know, the songs that we recorded were the songs that we were already playing. George has a very commanding personality, and sweetheart of a guy, but he's a take control kind of guy.
I hear you.
And I was a kid. I was, you know, I'm 7 or 8 years his junior.
Okay.
So you got to figure, you know, he joined the band when I was 18, and so he was, you know, 7, 8 years older than me.
Yeah.
So he definitely took this kind of, I'll help take you guys to where you guys need to go, that kind of thing. And he was
from Recon, right? He played guitar for Recon first.
Well, yeah, Recon was his baby.
Yeah. Again, another transition where it's like Recon is night and day compared to what you guys were doing. You know what I mean?
See, that's what George was. I mean, George was into power metal and metal. In fact, if you know, he put out a bunch of posts on his Facebook, I'm sure you saw at one point, where he just says, I hate speed metal, I hate thrash metal.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, it was the absolute truth. But what it was is George was a Johnny come lately to the scene when he joined Deliverance.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to the scene in general. I mean, I went to go see his band, Prophet, his and Roger Martinez's band, Prophet. I went to go see them in 1985 when Deliverance was starting. So, so George had been
in the band before.
Oh yeah, they were in a band called Prophet. Roger played guitar and George played guitar. Yeah.
No idea about that.
Yeah. But yeah, and they did the whole they kind of doing like the Striper thing, you know. But they were actually very power metal. They were cool. But so I'd already known George, I'd known Roger, I'd, you know, known the whole thing. So, but when George came in, he was so excited about, you know, this new phase of metal for him. Well, it started, you know, we were going on year 5 as a band, and it was kind of becoming old hat for us.
Yeah.
And I really, after working with John and Dino, and then getting to work with Bill Matoyer, I wanted that flavor of working with different producers and everything else. So, needless to say, you know, again, George took a very commanding foot in Deliverance at that time.
Well, it just seemed from the record from the beginning, it was kind of like, man, the label's kind of making us do this again. Because, I mean, that album came out, what, a year after? Maybe a year and a half after?
Yeah, you had the first album in '89, then '90 it was Weapons, and then '91 was What a Joke. Yeah. So and you know what, Weapons was just barely starting to get traction. You know, we had just gotten on MTV. Now we're doing a lot of touring, and we didn't need to do another record at that point in time.
Well, it's like the Black Album. You know, Metallica rolled on that album for what, 8 years? You know, what I mean?
Right.
And that's what I always kind of thought was weird. It's like, why didn't they just take Weapons and really just keep that rolling for 2-3 years and really, you know, make the fans crave something later?
Well, they should have.
Yeah,
they should have. And by that time there was a lot of infighting. By the time What a Joke came, me and George were fighting like cats and dogs.
I hear you.
You know, my band was gone. Brian wasn't there anymore. Chris wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
I felt like I was part of DeliverCon, you know, and because, you know, Mike and Johnny from Recon had joined us.
Yeah.
Well, Johnny, God bless him, great metal drummer, horrible thrash drummer, so he got booted, and I found that kid Kevin, who just had the feet from hell, you know. He was an amazing drummer. So as far as for the thrash stuff, so but we were fighting as far as direction, where we wanted to go. So when we did that record, there was kind of a couple of different reasons why we did it. We kind of wanted to make a horrible sounding album, a terrible record, because we were trying to get kicked off.
Okay.
And the reason so, because Pachyderm Records was waiting to offer us a deal.
Okay.
And George really wanted to sign with them. And well, Frontline got wind of it after a while, and you know, things went the way they did, and George and I separated, which we needed to. And he went his way, and I went my way, and I continued with the band that I had started.
Yeah.
So
because it's weird. I go in phases where I'll listen to the old stuff and be like, "Yep, this is the best era." Then, you know, I'll listen to, you know, Camelot or River Disturbance, or, you know, actually, I think my favorite record is Learn. I think that's my favorite record.
Wow, that's funny. Actually, there's a lot about Learn I really like.
Yeah.
It's a brooding record.
I just go in phases where I'm like, this is where it is. But I mean, because you're so diverse. But the one thing that I think Deliverance had more than any, you know, of the so-called bands, you knew how to write a mosh riff. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, that good circle pit, kind of just good, heavy, crunchy mosh, where you know, Vengeance was more chaotic. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Tourniquet was more, I think, you know, kind of thrashy, experimental, kind of sciencey, but like.
Yeah, I kind of think of them as more progressive. Speed,
exactly.
You know, yeah, progressive speed metal. Yeah.
Very much so. But yeah, I mean, you knew how to write a monster riff. You know what I mean? Where it's, you know, like hearing Anthrax. You know what I I when you hear Cotton Mosh, that makes you want to get down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, somebody was talking. I don't know who I was talking with, and I was like, he's like, "What's your favorite Deliverance song?" I go, honestly, I would say for old Deliverance, probably either If We Faint Not or Slay the Wicked. I think those are just monster riffs, you know what I mean?
That's funny. Well, Slay the Wicked was a Recon song that we did. And then If We Faint Not was that was my song. So but yeah, definitely I think of those songs as power metal, you know, they just have this vibe, you know, they're powerful, they're these just nice chunky riffs, you know, to just
they've got good moshability to them, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, especially back then, you know, kids wanted to, you know, I loved getting in the pit when I was a kid, so I don't know, I'm old, you know what I mean? But especially, you know, when you know, it's like when you hear that beginning to, you know, the fast part to one, and you're just like, you feel it and you're ready, you know what I mean? So that's funny you consider it more power metal, because like, man, I consider that like, you know, Testament, you know, Anthrax, SOD, you know what I mean? Just,
really? Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Very chunky, heavy mosh riffs, you know what I mean? I mean, your vocals definitely the more power metal, you know what I mean? You weren't doing the stuff, but it worked, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that's what it is because I always think of vocally. You could tell on What a Joke, I was definitely trying to emulate my heroes, Slayer. You know, obviously, I just, you know, everybody always thought I was a big Metallica head, and I wasn't. I not at all. I was really into Slayer, and that was, I mean, if I was going to listen to thrash, it was Slayer, and then obviously in later years, Meshuggah, and you can hear it. You know, I mean, there's just so many elements of it, but. You know, James, you know, Papa Het, I'll always respect him for his rhythm playing, because the guy's just a monster. But as far as a band, you know, I mean, you know, they're cool. You know, I mean, for me, the magic was gone after Cliff passed. You know, so
Metallica was no longer Metallica at the Black Album. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's when it definitely ended.
The same record over and over and over again, because what fun is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just at that point, you know, like the Black Album when it came out, I'm like, especially since at that point I had found Carcass and Napalm and Morbid Angel.
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? And you know, the Deicide and stuff, like the really extreme stuff. You know what I mean? And I was like, what the hell? Inner Sandman, this is stupid. You know, give me Suffering Napalm. You know what I mean?
So funny, Deicide. Whenever I think about them, I always just think about Glenn Benton, because you know, Glenn was actually really nice.
Yeah, I've met Glenn many times. Super nice guy.
Yeah, super cool. In fact, one of my favorite memories is, you know, we were all, there was about 4 of us or 5 of us. Roger was part of it. and we were all flown out to Colorado to go be on that Bob Larson show. Do you
That
remember
was my
Bob
next
Larson?
question.
And that goober, hey, we were treated great. I will tell you that. I mean, I had so much fun. I ended up actually staying on for a couple more days after everybody left because I was having so much fun with Bob.
Yeah.
He's definitely a goober. But what cracks me up is, number one, I remember Roger calling him bro, and all you heard was on the other end was, because he's like, well, basically, bro, and then you hear, I'm not your bro.
Yeah.
So Glenn's doing his whole shtick, and
Totally.
I want to cut your head off and blah 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 blah. So I go, it's station break, and I said, can I talk with Glenn? And they said, yeah, go ahead. And he's online, blah blah blah. So I pick up the phone and I go, hey Glenn, how's it going? And we're off the air right now. This is Jimmy Brown from Deliverance. I just wanted to say, dude, dig what you guys are doing, and everything else. And he's like, oh, cool, bro. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Bob sent me weapons. Dude, this Present Darkness totally rocks.
Nice.
I mean, I'm like, well, thanks, man. I mean, so there was this mutual respect, but then all of a sudden we're on air and I go, we're going on air. I'm going to put you on hold, bro. Wow. He's like, go. It's like, was this an act?
Yes.
And later we found out it was,
You had to sell records, man. You know what I mean? That's the thing. I mean, growing up, Bob Larson was something I was going to bring up, which is funny because, I mean, whether I don't know, whether he was a good guy or not, but especially what he's been about the last few years, like, this dude he's a scummy guy. You know what I mean? I just saw him on some TV show about a year ago. Now he's dressed as a priest.
Yeah. He bills himself as an exorcist now.
The creepy thing is like, it's like $1,000 training course that you can become ordained in exorcism. And he had like these 3 hot underage girls with him. I'm like, what the hell are you doing now, man?
Dude.
Like, it's like, man, this is no longer ministry, man. You are a P.T. Barnum succubus con artist. You know what I mean?
Well, here, I'm going to say this, and I don't care saying it. He always was.
Exactly.
And when we went there, the reason being, I mean, dude, I flew first class, stayed in a 4 Seasons hotel, all food, everything. I mean, we had everything like top full class. And, 30, 40 times during the show, he's asking for that 111.56 or your gift of 78 or whatever. Remember, it was like all these weird numbers, and if you give right now 111.56, or if you double it to 222, it's like, you'll get this and this and this, and dude, just thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people were just giving it, and then that cornball book that he didn't even write, because it was ghost written for him.
I think her name was Shelly something. It was I actually just found that out about 6 months ago. I was doing research for what I wanted to talk about, and Bob Larson was on it. But big old thing where in Denver he was screwing over the IRS and getting in trouble, and the book wasn't even written by himself. That's the problem I have. And do not take
he's a turd. He's definitely a turd, that's for sure. But he was nice. But he was a real nice guy.
He's a nice person, That's kind of where I have some serious issue with especially back then in the theology that was being pushed. You know what I mean? Because especially they're making it sound. Christians are making it sound like this, satanic, entity has taken over. There's all of these, murders and satanic things. And I've done my research on it. There's never been one confirmed satanic murder that the FBI has ever found. You know what I mean? Right. Then you had Mike Warnke, the Christian comedian, saying he was the same.
That guy.
You know what I mean? But
that guy was so full of shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I knew it. How the people got suckered. I was a kid when I first went to go see him, and hearing him tell all these outlandish stories, I was like, this dude is lying to these people. There was 10,000 people in the stadium, and I remember everybody just crying and scared and this and shocked. I'm like, he's lying to you people. How is it I'm 11 years old and I know he's lying? I mean,
But the scary thing is that the repercussions that actually have happened in real people's lives because of this fraudulent claim. You know, I mean, you had, you know, that daycare in San Diego where those, it was like Happy Star or something. And this was in the mid 80s where, you know, they were, you know, accused of satanic, you know, abuse and ritual. Those people did 16 years in prison before they were, you know, admonished. You know what I mean? You have, you know, unfortunately, you know, I mean, great documentary if anybody's never seen it, about the West Memphis Three. You know what I mean? Those kids in Arkansas that were, you know, Satanists and listening to Slayer, and they mutilated these 3 boys. And it comes out 20 years later, they're admonished because they didn't do it. You know what I mean? If you've
Really?
Paradise Lost, if you've never seen it, it's the 3-parter. It's not for kids, man. It is serious. But you have,
what is it called?
It's called Paradise Lost.
Paradise Lost.
If you have HBO Max, it's on there. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can watch all 3 of them. And it goes from when they're 15, 16, 17-year-old kids with all these Arkansas crazy religious nuts. You know, we've seen the devil dancing in the moonlight. There's got to be a point in time where Christians need to say, look, man, if we're talking about an inner struggle as a theory of against, you know, doing the good and bad in our life, that's one thing. But to manifest it to where people have actually spent years of their life incarcerated for a bullshit idea, man, it's insanity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the problem I had with Bob Larson, and because my mom would pick us up from school, we'd listen to him all the time. You know, my mom loved Bob. You know, and that's the thing is, if you're coming out of something with love, it's going to be easier. But all they did was pound the fear into you. You know what I mean? Which, you know, it's just, for me, it's just one of the major reasons why, you know, a turnoff for most religions is because not only allegorically you don't understand what they're saying, you know what I mean, but also the totality of what these people have done throughout history has been astonishingly evil. You know what I mean?
Sure. But we're seeing that a lot right now too.
Yes.
There's so much fear porn out because they, you know, you realize what motivates people.
Yeah.
And fear is a big driver.
Big time.
You know, and then, you know, Hitler said it best, you know, the bigger the lie, the more people believe it.
It's true. You know what I mean? You know, unfortunately, if you know, people would have read his book, it's not like he didn't tell Germany what he was going to do. You know what I mean?
I know. He laid the whole plan out. Yeah.
This is how I'm going to do this. And everyone's like, I don't know. Oh, what happened? It's like, you know what I mean?
I know. It's so funny. You know? Yeah.
You know, people just don't see the warning signs, and, you know, not even that, just question. You know what I mean? That's the thing. That's what's always like, you know, if you have an idea, or maybe, you know, like what you were telling me about with the rabbi, you know what I mean, who's like, always question, always learn. That's an amazing philosophy, other than this is exactly literal. This is exactly what has happened throughout time. You cannot change it. You know what I mean? Ask a question. You know, well, obviously they're afraid of you know, inner strength, and people saying, I don't really need this anymore, and you're not getting my money, so I'm out. You know what I mean?
Ultimately, that's what the fear is. Because if you were to preach and teach and say, yeah, you know, this isn't applicable anymore, it's kind of like when I see people, you know, quote Leviticus. And you know, oh, we'll see, you know, that's a sin because it says here and blah 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 blah. And I always like to ask them, and I go, and did you ever speak back to your mother?
Yeah.
And they're like, what is that? And I go, yes or no. Did you ever speak back to your mother or yell at your father? Yeah, once or twice. I go, as a believer, yes. I go, well, then you should be dead, because that same scripture says that you need to be taken to a wall and stoned to death.
Yep.
So if you're going to take it literal, you got to do it all. You can't take bits and pieces and say, oh, this is applicable and this isn't applicable. No, it's either all the way or you don't, you know, one way or the other. And if you have to pull back and say, okay, well, that's not applicable, well, then guess what? None of it is. So now it's time to take the allegory and learn from it what you will. You know, if anybody can truly think that the creator of the universe and beyond can be summed up into a tiny book,
yes,
and said, this is who and what God is, right there shows the state of mind you're in anyway, and you need to go throw rocks in an ocean somewhere on a pond, and just and make your life that be. In other words, because that would be more purposeful, because at the very least you cannot sit and pretend to know or understand the mind of the creator and the architect of everything, of the infinitesimal building block called the atom that we are now able to split. And the creator of that, and you're going to assume to know its mind and consolidate it all into 66 books and say this is the law of life and that's it. Yeah, there's a lot more to it.
Well,
and
that's true. I mean, even if you don't believe in the creator as God, but whatever, if the creator is the universe, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, that's
sure.
There's so much out there. There's so much on this planet we don't even know about our planet. You know,
right.
So how can we even say that I have the definitive answer for the afterlife when we don't even understand 90% of our own brain? You know?
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Well, I one of my favorite things about Isaac Luria, he was a very famous rabbi in the 16th century, I believe. He said that there is no Garden of Eden where an angel is standing there with a flaming sword. It's here. It's your brain. You've been cut off, and we cannot use any more than a certain percent because we blew it. Now, I don't know how true that is, but if our own pathetic condition, which we call sin, has brought us there, then yeah, I can certainly see how we've stifled ourselves.
Definitely.
And the flaming sword has cut off that other percentage of our brain, because like you said, that other 90%, I believe that if we had capabilities to access all of that, I believe wholeheartedly we could communicate telepathically. I believe wholeheartedly that we wouldn't need to speak anymore, that we could just look at one another and know and empathize and be true empaths and talk to each other like that. It would almost be like we were super beings. And I really believe that that's there, because I mean, if you really think that this is the end all of what you are, it's not. Because the bottom line is, when I die, when I go shed this mortal coil, this brain, this unbelievable, magnificent machine that is completely doing 2 million things per second in my body, will turn into a lump of crap and just rot and fill with maggots. It's useless. It's nothing. So the question then becomes, what is operating the brain?
Very much so.
So, and if it's a light force, then where is the light force coming from? And
the ultimate question.
And where do I go?
Yeah.
And what's the next vessel now for me? Because I love that analogy. I remember my rabbi told me, don't ever fear death, because all you're doing is switching vehicles. He said, you buy a car, you drive it until you run it into the ground. And what do? You get out and you buy a new one. Now, did you die because your car died? No, you just switched vehicles. So same principle.
I was looking.
That was way off topic, and I'm sorry.
No, it actually makes sense. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing. It's a very, very, very left-hand path kind of thought. You know.
Sure.
It's not that direct. Baptist. Whatnot. And that's the thing where, if you study other things or look into it, everything has something interesting about it. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question.
But that's the thing. I think that's what just that hangs me up the most, is like, even I call myself something, I don't know what is out there. I don't think Christians have the answer. I don't think Muslims have the answer. I don't think Jews have the answer. I think that is such a personal experience in this round little world in our life, you know what I mean, that we'll get to that second part of the journey when this part of the journey is over. It's the fact that these people are like, this is exactly what happens. This is what was told, you know what I mean?
Right.
Especially in the church, you know what I mean? I've come to see that the church doesn't really heal. They hurt. You know what I mean? Like, I was watching one of your videos where and if it's a touchy subject, but when you were talking about your drugs with cocaine, you know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, that's the thing. Why is that a sin? You know what I mean? And if even if you do have a problem, you know what I mean? Why wouldn't the church want to be there to uplift you, to make you, and to heal you, other than to condemn you? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's the thing. Not only that, they repress our basic needs. They repress you at puberty with with the sex and whatnot. You know what I mean? And I'm sure in the same, I will give this to Mark Solomon. If you haven't read his book, Simplicity, it's an amazing book. Have you ever read it?
No.
Okay, but he talks freely. He's like, I was never really into drugs or alcohol. Girls were my thing, and women. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I understand that the church, they push you so hard at a young, like, this is evil, this is wrong. They stunt us in our natural course of just living and growing up and finding out how this world works, based on fear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So therefore, when you are outed over something, it's shame. You know what I mean? So the church definitely needs to I don't know what they can do. You know what I mean? But it's hurtful, and I don't think my mom didn't realize how hurtful it was. Where looking at a Playboy, you are in deep trouble. You know what I mean? You brought a Slayer tape in this house. You better go talk to the youth pastor. You know what I mean? Without ever reading. You know what I mean? And do I really believe that? Oh, sorry, that was my phone. Sorry.
Oh, it's you. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. And I'm sure there are, the weirdos out there that believe in crazy stuff. There are true, like the guys from Behemoth are true Satanists, and there are certain true Luciferians and whatnot, and Wiccans and pagans and whatnot, but I don't know, I think growing up in such a restricted household, you know what I mean, especially by the time I got on my age, I was like, what is the fear of life? What is the fear of going out there and experiencing these things? You know what I mean?
The problem is that when you grow up very restricted like that, the first thing that you're going to do is rebel. Mm-hmm. I know it's funny Mark said that, because that was my weakness with starting around 15, 16 years old. I wasn't attracted to alcohol or drugs or anything like that. I loved girls. And I wanted as many as I could, and I started really conquering especially the youth group girls. So then it was like, I wonder if I can get, I'm 16 now. I wonder if I can get the 20-year-old, and then I wonder if I can get the 23-year-old, and it kept going. And that was, and I'll never forget our senior pastor, because my brother was associate pastor, but our senior pastor was a real good guy, Pastor Chambers, and he would just, I'd be in his office once a week, once every 2 weeks, because the hilarious part is, I would have a mingling with a girl, then the girl feels guilty and then goes and tells them I seduced him.
Yep.
And so I'm sitting in the pastor's office having to sit and listen to this whole, why are you seducing? Why are you tricking? Why are you, sweet talking, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not what happened. This is the truth. Yeah. And I remember it was like the 7th or 8th time I'm sitting in his office for the same subject. And he looks at me and he goes, what am I going to do with you? Why do you keep doing this? And I said, you know what it is? I go, here's the thing. I go, Pastor, do you believe that I love the Lord? And he goes, yes, I do that. I do believe that. And I go, good, because I can genuinely say in my heart of hearts, I do, with every fiber of my being. And he's like, but, and I said, well, the thing is, I don't feel bad about what I'm doing.
Yeah. There should be no shame in being a young man, figuring out.
And that's what I said. I go, so that makes me question whether I'm truly a Christian, whether I truly love the Lord, because now here's the thing. If I were to go cheat somebody or steal from somebody, I would feel genuinely bad inside in my heart. and would want to repent. But this doesn't make me want to repent.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
Yeah.
And trust me, I'm not advocating, oh yeah, go out and, bang everybody you can, okay, that's not what I'm saying here. But what I am saying is that it was definitely a natural course and part of an adolescent's life.
It's nature, you know what I mean?
And it's natural
into us, you know what I mean?
And I think a lot of what's going on even now, with all these confusions, and think about it, it used to be, straight, gay, lesbian, that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe a transvestite here or there that they're straight, but they like to dress up as a woman. No, okay, that's fine. Totally. But now there's like 2 million subgenres and identities that it's like, I mean, when I first started hearing, I'm pan, I'm this, I'm omni, I'm that. I mean, it's like, whatever happened to just normal, I'm straight or gay,
and I don't understand about a lot of those things because my sister is gay and she was
my best friend is my
brother-in-law is gay, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When people if you want to identify yourself as a robot, man, that's cool because as at the end of the day, as long as you're not hurting me and you're a good person, I don't give a shit what you do, man. Love, enjoy. If you want to have kids, have kids. If you don't and you want to live on the moon, do it. I don't give a shit. Be good. That's it. Be a good person. You know what I mean? Just live your life through.
I agree, but when people have to fixate on those things, it starts to come into question of all this stuff that was shoved down their throats that told them they had to be this. And mentally, it can be taken to extremities.
Well, I think anything, religious or secular or whatnot, satanic panic or gay or whatnot, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
There's a part of our minds are young. We are kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We know what we're going to be by the time we're 20. Hell, you know what I mean? I'll be 45 in 2 months. I never thought I would be a married man of 22 years with 2 kids living in the suburbs. That was never my game plan. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Never anything I wanted. Let your kids, if you want to identify this and that's how you grow into, awesome. I support that. Love it. Love yourself. Love everybody. Have a good time doing it. But again, I think the secular agenda can be a little bit, well, you need to know this now. You need to perform this way. You know what I mean?
Very much.
Christians do. You know what I mean? Just in a much different way.
Yeah, I think it's just a human condition, unfortunately.
I think too much information. I think kids are bombarded today with too much. You know what I mean? Man,
I liked it when we were kids because we got to discover.
Yes.
Now they're bombarded.
Yes.
We had to discover everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget the next door neighbors. Just grew bushes and bushes and they had pot bushes like just going all the way to the back, and I didn't know that you smoked the bud.
Yeah.
I just remember hearing my brother and all these other people talking about, you dry it out and then you do this and you do that. So I went and I took an actual leaf.
Yeah.
The leaf off of the plant and put it in foil, dried it out for a few days on the roof, then crumbled it and put it into a joint and smoked that horrible stuff that did absolutely nothing except make me sick. Yeah, it made me sick, But see, you discover, and that's what I'm saying is all that wonderfulness of discovery. It's kind of gone for today's youth. I would have hated being a kid now because you're bombarded with too much. You're not allowed to just figure things out.
Yeah.
And I love that part.
Not having your phone to fact check, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there was none of that. Yeah. Dude, I drove, I'll never forget. I went to my parents and said, hey, I got 2 concerts in San Francisco. I'm barely 16 years old. And I got 2 concerts in San Francisco, one at the Stone, one at the Omni in Oakland. And they're this Friday and this Saturday. And they were like, all right, be careful.
Yeah.
Call us when you get there. Call us before you leave. Because, this is day and age before this crap, the cell phone.
And when telephone calls long distance were expensive.
Yeah. And all I did was call Hey, I made it. Everything's good. Oh, did anything happen with the truck? Nope. Okay, bye. I mean, complete trust. Dude, I was 16.
Yep.
You know, and that's the way things were. And I'll never forget. It was a great trip there, great trip back. And you know, I mean, you remember LA to Frisco. I mean, that's a what, 6 to 8 hour drive. You know, I mean, that's a lot for a 16-year-old. You know,
well, especially being 298 miles. Well, from where I grew up in Ventura, it was only 298. From LA, about 360. But yeah, man, it was all the hills, man. It took you forever to get up to Frisco.
Oh yeah, but
San Francisco.
But it was cool.
Yeah.
It was super cool, and getting to walk the wharf and everything. Like I said, I'm 16 years old. I've got like 20 bucks in my pocket, and it doesn't matter, you know? I mean, I'm just happy. But I think about even my own wife, who my son goes to take a walk. Make sure you take your phone. Do you have your watch? Do you have your phone? Do you have your this? Do you have your that? Just to take a walk around the block.
Yeah.
And it's like, honey, he's 19. He can take a walk. He's fine. You know, we're just so used to these leashes and these things, and it's terrible because we are completely and totally dependent on this. If we lose this, I mean, remember we used to remember phone numbers?
Yeah.
Or carry around a little smashed book in our pocket. You know, we pull out and write with a pencil somebody's number down. I mean, you know, that's all gone, and it's I feel bad that magic of discovery is gone for kids.
Well, it's killed imagination. It's killed, you know, exploring. You know, I mean, that's the thing. You can find anything you want. When I was 13, we lived in Colorado Springs for a little bit, and one of my best friends, still to this day, you know, he had Playboys we looked at. Well, his older brother told us, "Hey, man, downtown there's this office building where girls work naked," and we're like, "Where's this at?" That's where the Fully Land is. So he tells us it's office building, this number. Man, we grabbed our skateboards. Bam. I mean, it took us.
Was he messing with you?
What's that?
Was he messing with you?
Oh, yeah. Well, we grabbed our skateboards, and it took us about 2.5, 3 hours to get there, skating all the way downtown. Found the place, walked in, was like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Dentist office. You know, like, son of a bitch, you know. He went all the way back to his house, was gone all afternoon. You know what I mean? He's there when we got home. He was like, "You guys are stupid." We're like, Again, I go home for the night, and my mom's like, "What'd you do today?" Skateboarded downtown with Steve all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and at that point in time, you know, oh, what's this? Let's go pop into here. Or, you know, see, even getting into mild trouble. You know what I mean? Seeing what you just wreck. You know what I mean? Sure. But it was funny also because there was a store in Colorado Springs called Mosh Pit Records. Do you remember Pit Magazine?
No.
Okay. Pit Magazine did the extreme metal stuff. I mean, you know, they didn't do hair shit. It was all extreme, especially a lot of the British bands that were coming out at the time. Well, they had a store in Colorado Springs, and it was maybe a 500-600 square foot little store. But I mean, you know,
those are the best, though, man.
Yeah, Sam Goody didn't carry Pungent Stench. You know what I mean? They didn't carry bands like that. And so I found where it was, and my brother had just gotten his license, and he was with a buddy of his, and we find it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. I go in, I start looking, and you know, I mean, they had Slayer shit everywhere, and you know, satanic stuff. My brother and his friend wouldn't even come in because they were so like. They were terrified of it. You know what I mean? They were like, you shouldn't be here. Yeah. This is evil. You know what I mean? Like, this is awesome. You know what I mean? That's when I first found, you know, what was the band? Bolt Thrower. You know what I mean? I'd never.
Bolt Thrower, yeah.
And I was like, who are these guys? This is awesome. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's the thing. If anything's going to, you know, Christianity, whatever, don't let it stifle your imagination and your discovery of things. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, sure. I mean, I'm a guy that, except for, I'm not a big rap guy, but like I can listen to pretty much anything from old country up to a lot of things. You know what I mean?
I love old country.
You know, that's the thing. Just don't close off your mind to new experiences. And I think that's just where kids are today. You know, they're so here. And they're so, you know, you got to know what you're doing for college. You got to know what your life's about in 30 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just let your kids enjoy, man. Just let everybody enjoy. This
exactly.
journey's too small. It's too short and it's too small.
Yeah, I'll tell you, especially now, and I'm going on 52, bro, and I'm realizing, yeah, this was it just passed so fast.
Yeah.
And I just tell my kids all the time, enjoy every second and don't submit to fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just you're gonna fall, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna do some stupid things, but just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move forward. Just keep going. And but take chances, don't be afraid. I love what Bowie said. That's when he said, whenever I start to feel safe about a recording I just did, then I know I'm committing suicide.
Yeah.
He goes, so I need to go further into the water, almost to the point where I'm under it completely and I can't feel my feet on the bottom anymore. Right when I'm there, I know I made a good album. Nice. And it's like, he goes, because as an artist, you need to not be safe. And he goes, that's life. Yeah. And I'm like, that is life. That's exactly what life is. And it's not about always playing it safe. Definitely. Sometimes you got to just
especially
roll the dice.
Well, especially, it was like when Deliverance, George left, What a Joke came out, then, you cut your hair. Everyone's like, and then, you're starting to do a little bit more melodic, a little bit more, Dream Theater-y, kind of heavy, just progressive metal. And everyone's like,
yeah, it was definitely different, because what we did, Stay, we did Learn, and then River came, and that's when I talked to everybody into cutting their hair off and let's wear suits on stage. Yeah. Oh man, I mean,
you were smart, because at that time, what was big was not, it was, Tooth and Nail had come about, you know what I mean? Punk rock, ska, alternative, weirdos, you know what I mean? Like, the long hair stuff wasn't chic anymore, and nobody was really doing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So therefore, I mean, especially like, when Rancid broke, like in '94, and Lollapalooza, it really brought that kind of like 80s just punk rock vibe, and there were so many bands that I think got signed that only were signed because they needed, a catalog. There was a lot of bad music in the 90s, you know what I mean?
Yes, there was. I think the glory years were definitely the 80s for me. Yeah, I love the 80s. Good stuff. Yeah, it's funny you brought up Anthrax. That's one band I always forget how much I actually enjoyed, because there wasn't a lot of for me. Metal was Maiden. I loved Iron Maiden. I loved Black Sabbath, and but I mostly listened to electro music. Electronic and but for the real guitar music, I really loved Maiden and Sabbath and everything else. But for the faster, the thrashy stuff, it was Slayer. And I loved Anthrax, because Charlie Benanti and Scott Ian. I mean, my God, those two guys. Never was a big fan of Joey's vocals. I loved it when they got the dude from Armored Saint, John Bush,
and then I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
I think his name's John Bush.
John Bush, yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, dude. I was so stoked, because he was like my favorite part of Armored Saint, And so I thought for sure this was going to be amazing, but Joey still did his own thing. But, one song, man, I'll just never forget, I really loved, and it influenced the song Victory, was that song, Skeletons in the Closet.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just love that. And it just came to my head right now when you said Anthrax. I was like, oh man, I haven't heard that in so long. I mean, like probably 20-30 years. I gotta go listen to it.
About 5 years ago, there was a resurgence of like classic 80s thrash bands that were coming out.
Really?
Check out, they're called, one is called Warbringer.
Oh.
They sound like they're from 1987. They are amazing kids. I'm talking like young kids, like 19 years old.
Wow.
Warbringer, Havoc, Municipal Waste.
Them, I've heard. Yeah, Muni Waste. Oh my gosh, dude, they are bad. They're pretty bad. Yeah, I like them.
Check out Havoc too. And then what was the other one? One I really liked. They're called Get the Shot. Just it's a
Get
weird
the Shot.
name. Yeah, they're called Get the Shot.
Wow, they would fit in really well right now.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. I mean, these are all young kids, like, you know, that grew up on it and just are. They're not ripping it off, just making it weak. They're making it their own, and they're doing it well. You know,
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
If there was, say, except for Deliverance, like the one album in the Southern California, you know, extreme metal scene that you heard for the first time, or like, shit, I wish I would have wrote that record, what would it be?
See, SoCal, I can't say it because the album that I listen to and say I wish I would have wrote it, Stormtroopers of Death, man. I mean, that's the one, because I'll never forget. We were. Do you remember the Oasis in Hollywood?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember that club. So we're there. It's 1986. We're playing a show, like, you know, because we played there like every 2-3 weeks, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember Chris Hyde was just sick. He had a fever, and he was laying in the back of his truck. And then I told him to come lay on mine. I have carpet in mine, and so he was laying in mine. And my roadie, Jimmy Griffin, who was my high school chum, he's been walking up and down Hollywood Boulevard. He comes back and he's like, dude, it just came out today. And I'm like, what just came out today? And he's like, SOD. And I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
He's like, put it in the truck. I put it on, and I had speakers. I had 6x9s going all the way back. I forgot Chris was back there laying there sick, you know. And so that, you know, the opening of story, you know, and me, Larry Farkas, from, you know, later to join Vengeance, and Jimmy Griffin are just in the front, my you know, back when they had bench seats.
Yeah.
And we were just sitting there in the front, and we were just like, oh my God. And it just, you know, we listened to the whole thing. And finally we started hearing this pounding, and it was Chris, and he's like, please turn it down. I'm gonna throw up. Because he had a bad headache, you know. I felt so bad for him. Yeah, but oh, dude, I just remember that was, even, it's funny because even to this day I listen to that. As far as SoCal, it would have to be Rain and Blood.
Okay.
Because,
but if you had to pick, like, you know, out of Vengeance, if whatever record, the Crucified, Tourniquet, for me, I think the game changer for Christian metal, and I like Deliverance and whatnot, Scrolls of the Megaloth, Mortification, man. That album, I think, changed the direction, because I mean, there was nothing that intense in the Christian scene at that time. You know, I mean, like Roger had his vocals and whatnot, but like, I think Mortification was the very first, you know, Christian death metal band. I mean, that sounded like a death metal band. No,
they to me sounded legit.
That's the word I'm looking for.
The thing about Vengeance, because I knew those guys, you know, Doug was a horrible guitar player. Roger Martin was like into AHCWC and all this other stuff. You know, Glenn was into Zeppelin. You know, Glenn was, I mean, he could play in Bonham like no other.
Nice.
Dude, Glenn's an amazing drummer. And Roger, because I knew Roger and what a joker he was, he used that stupid SPX 90 harmonizer. So that wasn't him. It was that thing. And to me, I used to always tell them, you sound like we called him the Happy Demon, because he was smiling. You know, it's just so dorky, you know. To me, I never got Vengeance, and I still don't understand why people liked them. The rest of the guys had unbelievable stage presence. I thought Roger did not.
I will say, yeah, Human Sacrifice, just for the time and the genre, especially being somebody who had to have that Christian alternative, that still holds up. I think what's the Once Dead? That sucks. I think it's boring.
And the one thing I will say, though, Zakk Wylde stole Larry Farkas's gig,
Yes, he did.
Yeah, because Larry was Zach before there was a Zach.
Yep.
And yeah, to me, I think he stole his gig. But
well, and by the time like Destruction Comes and released,
those are horrible records.
they're not even cohesive. They're like they have so different kinds of sounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not even like you would even know it was the same band. That's where it's like all 4 Vengeance records could be their own different band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the same singer. You know what I mean? Like, I never got into that bluesy shit, man. Like, I didn't care about Ride. You know what I mean? Like, I'm of the generation, like, I appreciate more of that music now because I'm older. But, like, at that time, I didn't give a shit about Rush. I love Rush. You know what I mean? But I'm like, I want to hear, Slayer. I want to hear the Misfits. You know what I mean? I want to hear something that my generation is
different energy. Yeah, different energy.
But that's where it just kind of seems like a lot of these guys were like very blues based and like classic rock, but then they end up writing, thrash metal, and they're like, yeah, that's not really what I wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I'll never forget Victor Macias, who obviously played bass in Tourniquet, and then he played with Deliverance for a while. He went on tour with us, our very, very first tour. He was our roadie. He was our one-man road crew. And when he heard the song The Call, and the whole beginning, that da-na-na-na-na-na-na, he looks at me and he starts laughing. And he goes, it's so cool because nobody here knows where you ripped that off of. And I go, oh, you do? And he goes, yeah, Kraftwerk. And then later used by African Bambaataa on Planet Rock. I go, yes. Oh my God, finally somebody got it,
Like, damn, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, Victor knows music. He knows obscure music, strange music. I mean, the dude's a wealth of unbelievable music knowledge of any genre. He's amazing. Well, he used to be a music buyer at a big record store in LA. But it was so funny that he called that out and he started saying, dude, I hear all sorts of like Human League riffs and this and that, but you're just doing it on the guitar. And I'm like, yep, exactly.
I'll have to re-listen to some of the older stuff and see if I can hear that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
That's so crazy that you can bring up Victor, who ended up being in Tourniquet years later, was your road guy and whatnot. Like, but it just seems like
and then he joins Deliverance all the 30 years later. It's hilarious.
It seems like that scene was very incestuous. Like everybody was part of that.
Yes.
Was there a lot of I mean, honestly, like like bad competition, like bands you just didn't want to play with because they were assholes, or just what I mean? Like,
the only one that we had hard feelings towards was Vengeance, because they stole Larry, and that really, really upset me because they really guilted Larry with the whole Sanctuary thing. You're part of us, and we're a Sanctuary band, and you're with these guys that aren't Sanctuary, and blah 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 blah, and they just guilted him. And then Larry wanted to go harder edged. He knew I was never going to be able to sing like that. I mean, it's funny because like George, when George first got into Deliverance, he just like submerged himself so much that that's all he wanted to do. Larry was the same way because Larry was a blues rock guy, and but then when he discovered all the intricate riffing and all that crazy stuff, he just went full force, and then he wanted all those hardcore vocals. And I used to tell him, well, then get somebody who can actually do the hardcore vocals, because Roger is not it. And that's why when I hear you say Scrolls of the Megaloth, dude, that was the first legit in the Christian realm. It was the first legit death metal band. Yeah.
Other than that, I think for
them and of course we can't forget Cauldron of Puke.
Who was that?
Research them.
Okay. I remember going to the Christian bookstore, bands like Haven and Rage of Angels and all this, like rock, like I had some Barren Cross, you know what I mean? As a 10-year-old, you're like, this is cool, but by the time you're 13, you're like, this stuff sucks, you know what I mean? Like, not even musically, not that they couldn't play, just it wasn't what you're looking for. So when you find these, like for me, I think Scrolls and Pillars of Humanity, man, because that is one of the best thrash hardcore punk records ever.
Oh, it's a true crossover album,
yeah.
and it's to me where Pantera took their gig from.
Yeah.
Because if you saw Pantera before they played with Crucified, when Phil had the long hair and everything else, then all of a sudden they play 2 shows with Crucified. Then he shaves his head and starts coming out on stage with that attitude, and it was, and I mean, people don't give enough credit to some of the bands that helped start things, and the Christian scenes that helped start stuff for the secular world,
Well, like you brought up Believer from Illinois.
Yeah.
Other than their name, man, Sanity Obscure and
oh, dude, Dimensions. What an amazing record.
Extraction from Morality.
Oh, Extraction from Mortality, yeah.
Great records. Great technical death metal. You know what I mean?
Very. They were pretty legit death metal too, I think.
Yeah. It just their name sucked.
They were more like Chuck Schuldner's Death,
Yes, very much so, yes.
Yeah, which, rest in peace. Dude, yeah. Chuck was so cool. I don't know if you ever got to meet Chuck, but
no, I saw Death once. I saw him, I think it would have been Spiritual Healing.
Mm.
Yeah, early 90s. They played
super cool dude, man.
They played at the Ventura Theater because that's where I grew up in Ventura. So they played there with Suicidal and another kind of suicidal tendencies band called No Mercy. So
I remember them. Yeah.
Rick Clayton, the artist, he's a famous artist now. He did all the suicidal drawings and that iconic Venice Beach.
Yep, exactly.
But that was the thing though with Believer, man. You couldn't be like, you tried with your friends, like, hey man, I've got this tape I'm gonna throw in. Well, what's the band name? You tell them, they're like, lame, and it didn't matter what their music was good or not. You couldn't get past it. You know what I mean? They're just like, we're not listening to this. I'm like, no, you know what I mean? But Believer was
funny.
A fantastic band. Fantastic.
That's what I liked about Deliverance. It made people think of banjos and Squeal Like a Pig.
I hear you. But it just kind of sucked when the scene just kind of stopped. Like, I remember emerging bands like Betrayal that were coming up, and then it just kind of seemed metal was done, alternative was in, you know what I mean? And just everybody just kind of just went their own way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, metal is good,
You're a true believer.
And that's the thing.
In metal.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite artist is honestly, everybody's like, really? The way I look? Like, my favorite singer of all time is David Ruffin from The Temptations.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, I love soul. A good friend of mine, he, if you want to check out an amazing vocalist, my friend Todd, he plays in a band from Chicago called Deal's Gone Bad. And they're ska, reggae, kind of soul. My old punk rock band played with them back in 2000, and I was at the bar having a drink, and they started doing their thing. And I would have thought it was David Ruffin's little brother singing, and he's a white dude.
Wow.
They came out, I'm like, little white dude with a big mustache. I was like, who are you guys? And we ended up becoming good friends. But yeah, check out Deal's Gone Bad. You will enjoy their music. Very much so.
I'm writing that down right now. Deal's Gone Bad?
Mm-hmm. From Chicago.
Oh, all right.
Good. Cool. Well, man, I thank you for your time, bud. I'm going to let you go.
Oh, was that all the questions?
I think we got through everything. Let me see my list one more time.
I always just feel like I go off on rants and then we just talk and talk and talk.
Stupid phone. Well, and that's the thing, like, and then, I'm going to edit this part out, but, because I've been talking to, okay, here's the thing, man. This is how everything came about with me and Roger. So, I wanted to do this series, and I talked to Jim, and then, things weren't happening, COVID hit, then Jim's like, no, I don't want to do it. Then you're like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm like, well, fuck, I really want to do this show. So, I saw they were releasing Vengeance, the last 2 records on vinyl. I'm a vinyl freak. I collect vinyl. I love vinyl. And I'm like, I'm going to buy it. So I buy them. And so I'm like, well, obviously they're making records, so Roger's going to be getting paid. So I emailed the guy, and I'm like, hey, man, do you have Roger's contact? This is what I'm looking to do. And he was like, no, I licensed it through this Adele.
Yeah, Adele, Meisenheimer. Yeah, Meisenheimer Group. Yeah, Mies Music.
Yeah, so I tracked them down, and, you know, they're like, we don't know where Roger is. I'm like, well, then how's he getting paid? You know what I mean? Like, who's giving him his money? So basically, I was just like, fuck it. So I spent, you know, $100 and called in a private detective in LA and had him find Roger.
Oh man, I wish you would have known me, dude. You could have just called me. I just would have just, here's his number, dude.
You know, so, and that's the thing. So Roger calls me and we start talking, and so I was kind of speaking for him with Adele, because I mean, you know, he hadn't been paid, he says, in like 20 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so my thing is, man, art is art. You know what I mean? If it's your product, you deserve, you know, Christian, secular, whatever. You deserve to be paid.
He's gotten it, by the way, thus far.
Yeah, he started to, they got in contact.
She sent him a big fat check for all those years. Yeah.
Good.
So he's lucky. He got a nice fatty. I saw it.
If it's his music, he deserves it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's his records. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then, you know, he is, you know, like, I have email upon email of just gibberish and hate and crazy shit. And I'm just like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
that's Raj. But
yeah,
he's always been that person. That's all I'll say. You know?
Well, I remember after, you know, Vengeance broke up, and he was sending, you know, all this stuff, you know, against the band and how they ripped him off. And I'm just like, looking, as a kid, I'm thinking, you know, I was kind of on his side, like, that sucks, you know. But now as an adult, I'm like, maybe there's more to this adventure than what you've.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was so full of it. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
He was full of it. Yeah, they gave him and signed over everything to him. And the funny thing was, he was the last to join.
Yeah,
it was mostly, that band was Doug and Larry.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, then it was, you know, Glenn and actually Vengeance has a very interesting story, because they actually started with our guitar player currently for Deliverance, and
Larry
87, which was no with Glenn Rogers.
Oh, okay.
And Glenn Rogers was the one who had the vision for a Christian speed metal band.
Okay.
And so he met he had a drummer named Steve Bertram, and then they had he was introduced to Doug, and then introduced to somebody else, I can't remember, but they started to write, and Glenn wrote, like, I think Human Sacrifice and White Throne, and you know, just like that whole beginning of White Throne, that it's from Phantasm, the movie Phantasm.
Okay, I can hear that.
Yeah, and you know, Glenn's the one who came up with that. So, well, Glenn didn't like where they were going with turning into a sanctuary band and all this other stuff. So Glenn split.
Yeah.
And then Larry came in, then Roger Martin came in, and then they got a new drummer, Glenn, and then Roger Martinez was the last to join. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, that band like started with, it's so funny, like you said, there's this weird incestuous inner exchanging of members that are just have been all over the place. And you know, but you know, Glenn actually was he's a true metal soldier, man. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. You know, he introduced us to Bill Metoyer. He knew Bill Metoyer. In fact, Deliverance, when we started playing in 86, 87 at the secular clubs, you know, Dark Angel was there. The Gene Hoglan from, you know, later to join Death and everything else, you know, he started showing up to all our shows.
Nice.
The guys from Viking. I mean, we were playing with all these secular bands that just had a ton of respect for Deliverance.
Cool.
And they, you know, they used to always tell me, dude, you have the wrist from hell, you know, and then they would go, oh, sorry, heaven. Yeah, the wrist from heaven. Yeah, I just start laughing. I'm like, you could say wrist from hell, I don't care. But I mean, you know, Glenn was just you know, he's kind of one of those unsung heroes that people don't realize. He was super duper instrumental in starting this kind of stuff, man. You'd do good to do an interview with Glenn. Okay. I mean, think about it, man. He's been in Hyrax. He's been in Heretic.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, he wrote albums for them and toured with them. Both bands. I mean,
I love Hyrax. Hyrax are awesome.
Yeah, so Steel Vengeance. I mean, that's when he left Deliverance. He went to go join Steel Vengeance out in England. Dude, wow. Glenn's a legit cat, and I love and his new project right now, because you know he's still in, you know, Deliverance. We're still gonna play, yeah. And when we do, Glenn's our guy. Glenn's our guitarist. You know, as you heard on Subversive Kind, obviously. Yeah. But you know, he's got his Final Decree project right now. They're getting ready to release, and he just sent me a little vinyl single, and dude, it's good stuff, dude. It's just good thrash metal, old school thrash metal. And yeah, you need to contact Glenn. I'll send you his contact info. Okay. And he'd be great for one of these. Okay. So he's funny as hell. Nice. He'll probably sit and have some whiskey and just talk with you, you know.
Roger definitely wanted these to be like, I definitely have an opinion and want to debate and whatnot, but Roger wanted to come at this in a much mean way. And I was like, dude, that's not what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what, though? I could see that. Dude, Roger's very bitter. Yeah. And I still don't understand why. You know, one of my funniest things I ever told him, that it made him hate me for about 2 years, but then he got over it. I saw him. We were all living in the high desert, and he had moved out there. And
like Palm Springs, right?
No, Hesperia.
Oh, Hesperia. Okay.
Yeah, Victorville area. And this was like 1995, 1996. Yeah. And I see him and I invite him over to my house, and, you know, hey, let's have some drinks, let's kick back, let's chill. And he starts telling me, you know, yeah, bro, I don't believe in anything anymore. I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe in God. I don't believe, you know, because I went out to the desert and I was there for 3 days and 3 nights. They were doing rituals and everything, waiting for the devil to show up to sell him my soul. And he never showed up. And I go, dude, the reason being is you suck so bad, the devil doesn't want you, bro. Oh, he got so mad at me.
Oh, yeah, I'd have been that too. I'd be like, damn. Well, it's you know, it's just sad that he just can't do something just for entertainment. You know what I mean? Without having some crazy chip on his shoulder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. If he wanted to just do something, I would love it. But man, he started sending me texts of, I want to do a tribute to Steve Lukather. And then I want to do a tribute to Celtic Frost. Then I want to do a tribute to Alan Holdsworth, and I'm going to play guitar. And I'm like, you can't play guitar, especially like Alan Holdsworth. Then, I mean, dude, it was just all scatterbrained and weird. And then he was like, I'm working on a movie script, and I'm working on this, and I'm doing this. And I'm like, hey, Raj, I don't have any time for this. Sorry. You know, and that's all I do. And I stopped picking up the phone because he would just take up hours of my time with just all this jarbled. I mean, but he's always been that way. The only time that I could actually get him centered when he was the pastor of Sanctuary Hollywood is I turned him on to Monopoly on Nintendo.
Oh, nice.
And that was what centered him when we would play Monopoly on the Nintendo.
Right.
And it was so funny, but that was when he was his most lucid.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he was off in that land constantly. I mean, he's always been that way ever since I met him. When I met him in '85, because see, when I first met Roger and George at that Prophet show, George was a total dick to me.
Yeah.
And
George is.
Yeah, he can be. But Roger like came right up to me and just like, hey bro, and we just started and we exchanged numbers, and Roger and I have been friends ever since.
Yeah.
So
that's my first impression the first time we went to Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And because church there didn't start till 2:30, which was awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hate getting up early. But we drive down there, and after it's over, like Roger calls me up, we start talking, and they had just finished recording Destruction Comes, and he had all this artwork for the layout of the album.
Yeah.
He's like, man, I don't know if he used it or whatnot, but he was like, man, what do you think? He's like, which one would you buy? And I pointed to the one, and I'm like, dude, this one's killer. This is the one. And he's like, cool, then we're going to use it. Whether they did or not, as a 13-year-old kid, I was like, holy shit. You know what I mean? Like, not only is the singer talking to me, he's asking me my advice. You know what I mean? Like Roger had a really, other than not knowing him personally, it always seemed he did have kind of a kind exterior to the kids that really were into the music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, that could have been whatever. He could have been like, fuck that kid later on. You know what I mean? Like that kid.
Yeah. No, he genuinely likes people.
Yeah.
He's just, I mean, when I'll never forget sitting with him. I think it was 1992, 93. Actually, no, it was in Colorado after the Bob Larson thing. We're in the pool at midnight at the hotel, and I'm having a cigarette, and he's like, how long you been smoking, bro? So, because you were smoking when I first met you, and I guess since I was 15.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I haven't touched anything, but he goes, I think the last acid trip I did, it was like my 6,000th acid trip. I'm like, oh, that explains a whole hell of a lot.
Him and Hunter.
If he's taken 6,000 hits of acid, it explains a whole lot.
I've never done acid, but I understand it. You know what I mean? So if somebody's taking that many hits, like, you got it, man. That was just the thing for me. Drugs were just never my thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I smoke cigarettes and I drink, but like you know what I mean? I was more interested in, girls than I was in and going out, and smoking weed and whatnot,
Yeah.
So especially I hung out with a lot of, straight edge punk rockers, you know what I mean? So
oh wow, if you hung out in the straight edge scene, sure. Yeah, that's
straight edge, but I have a lot of friends that were, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
It was just one of those things where, it was funny. I'm playing a show. We were opening for Earth Crisis. And this is when I was in my very last band. I was in a hardcore band called One Blood, very beat down, very Victory Records kind of hardcore. And we were opening for Earth Crisis, and I'm outside smoking, and Earth Crisis comes out, and they're like, and I was 40 at the time, and they're much older than I am. They're like, you can't smoke over here. I'm like, serious, man? Like, you guys are still really pulling this at, like, you guys are like 45, 50. Like, I'm not even in the venue. I'm outside on the phone having a smoke. They're like, you need to put that cigarette out. And I'm a big guy. I'm 6'6", you know what I mean? I was just like, or what? What are you going to do? I'm like, get the hell out of here, So,
that's funny.
That's the kind of point, is it the extremity of, the extreme, personification of anything, whether Christian.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. Yeah.
Fucking anything, when you take
politics, people, like I said, humanity in general is so diverse and so strange. We don't need all these other things to pollute.
We don't need man-made walls built up when life is already weird as it is.
Yeah, I know, man. I know it, bro.
As things are, so
For sure.
So, a couple more things. I have not heard your newest album, The Echo. I saw something the other day about it. Jupiter.
Oh God, no! You're thinking of my latest my first solo album, Eraserhead.
Yes, okay. I was looking at your site the other day, and I saw it. What's that kind of like? I haven't listened to it yet.
Eric Clayton from Savior Machine described it best. He says, dude, it's just a good hard rock album.
Okay.
And he said it's just solid. It's got all your influences in there, but it's just a solid hard rock album. And as my singles, in fact, I'm just finishing a cover of Placebo's Infrared. Nice. So I mean, I do all sorts of crazy stuff for my patrons. I've covered everything from Brandon Flowers to that girl that sings "You Say," and I mean, I'll do anything. I mean, if they request it, I'll do it if I could facilitate it.
Yeah.
And but my solo stuff, I would say if you like River Disturbance, you'd have no issue. Right. With actually liking it. As a matter of fact, let me make sure, since because you're connected to email. Did my covered? Is my email covering you?
No, I can still see you.
Oh, okay. So let's see here. So if I reply to Simon Carnes, it'll go right to you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm gonna send you the Eraserhead album just so you could take a listen to it digitally, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see here. Where do I do that? Share. I always forget.
I always have to yell and ask my wife. I'm like, how do you do this? I'm like a monkey. I'm like, whack. I don't know what this is.
Are you a Floyd fan?
No.
Nope, not a Pink Floyd fan. Okay.
Not at all.
Then I will not send you Jupiter 6.
The three bands I just cannot stand. I cannot stand the Doors. I don't like Pink Floyd, and I hate Skynyrd.
Oh, well, I'm with you on Skynyrd, but boy, man, the other two are so hard for me to swallow.
I get it, you know what I mean? Like my buddy Bruiser, from Detroit, huge Rush freak, and finally, this is probably about 10 years ago. He was like, "Man, you're gonna come see Rush with me, and I'm buying you a ticket." And I'm like, "All right, if you're buying the ticket, I'll go." You know what I mean? So we ended up going to see Rush, and I missed out, man, because once I saw them live, I got it. You know what I mean? And I've been a huge Rush fan ever since. But it just, some of those 70s bands, man, just, as especially with radio back in the 80s, it just shoved it. You heard, the Doors and, Comfortably Numb all the time, you know what I mean? And it's just something I was just like.
Very true.
I couldn't take it. I'm like, I gotta find there were, and especially in California, there was except for pirate radio, which was 99.1. That was the only thing that was playing even somewhat of aggressive music. And you might hear a Biohazard song on there every now and then, but mostly they're playing Aerosmith and Def Leppard and stuff like that. So.
Oh yeah, I loved pirate radio. They were cool. I mean, I mostly listened to KROQ, but so see if you can access these. I just emailed you some links. So see if you can access these. Are you in your email?
No, I have no idea how to get there without ending.
Oh, well, the wait for your wife to help you load up to your email. But okay. I sent you two Dropbox links. One is to my my Eraserhead album.
Okay.
It's the whole album. I don't know if it's in order or not, but it's the digital file. So cool. They're MP3s. Hope you dig it. And then the other one is the very first Jupiter 6 album. See, the second Jupiter 6 album is a total homage to Pink Floyd. Okay. But so I wasn't going to send you that one because we're talking, it's 5 songs and it's almost an hour long. So the first one though is more kind of an homage to 70s glam rock and
New York Dolls
punk rock. New York Dolls meets Iggy Pop meets Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Cool.
So it's super cool.
Yeah.
So there, I just sent you those 2 links just so you could hear some of my other musical diversity, you know.
Cool. Well, let me the last question, then I'll let you go because I'm dying for a cigarette myself.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you.
I hear you. First, I want to say, man, thank you for doing this for me. I appreciate
it. Bro, no, anytime, man. I love talking.
My first vision was, filming with everybody, and all that stuff. And, everyone then finally was like, fuck this. I'm not doing this. And I was like, all right, I guess we're going to, pandemic, Zoom is the way to go. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Even though we might have a, difference of philosophy and beliefs and whatnot, I'm staunch in what I believe. You know what I mean? I still believe that people can be respectful. You know what I mean?
Sure, of course.
Have an adult conversation. But, if somebody came up to you right now and was like, do you really feel that knowing what you know and what you've studied throughout the years and the experiences you've had now as a 55-year-old man, other than a 16-year-old kid starting off, would you want do it the same way? Would you still be the Christian band and start that route? Would you go just the route of I'm just going to do a band? Or, would you say at that point in time, maybe I'm just going to walk away from the faith and figure something else out?
We didn't want to be a Christian band.
Okay.
We wanted to be that's why we were playing the secular clubs. That's why we were playing with Dark Angel. That's why we were hanging out with all the secular. We didn't want to be involved with the Christian music scene because I really wholeheartedly believed that scripture of what Jesus said when the Pharisees asked, why do you hang out with all the whores, the prostitutes, the tax collectors? He said, because the well don't need a doctor. It's the sick that do. And what kind of light can you be if you're just hanging around? I mean, you're people preaching to the choir. That's what's never made sense to me about church. People go to church and they're hearing the same salvation message over and over and over. And it's like, you guys are saved. Why are you guys in the altar every Sunday? Yeah. It doesn't make sense. And it started really, really hitting me that this relationship that we're supposed to be building with Christ, we're not building with Christ. We're building it with his people or with these people who think they're Christians. Yeah. And we build our confidence and trust, and then we end up getting dismayed, betrayed, and shit on, and then we end up leaving the faith. Yeah. And all in the whole concept and process, we left true Christianity behind, because true Christianity was not about going anywhere. It was about you and God in your prayer closet. That's what Jesus said. Like I said, if you barrel down everything just to the red letters of the 4 gospels, dude, what Jesus says is pretty awesome. When they asked him, what is the whole of the law? He says, the whole of the law is this: love God with all your heart, soul, strength, mind, and spirit, and love your neighbor as yourself. You can do these 2 things, you've done the whole law. And it's the truth. But yet, think about the Christian church today. We still can't even do those 2. They couldn't do the 10 commandments. They couldn't do the 270 principles set up in Leviticus and Levitical law. And you're going to and then Kashuit law, forget it. You're telling me it's barreled down to 2 and they still can't do it? Wow. That, dude, problems. And it made me realize it's because we're creating the problems. Christians create the problems. So when I started studying other faiths, it was more because I wanted to understand why Christianity was so screwed up, or why did it get to a point where it was so screwed up, or was it always screwed up? That was what I was trying to figure out. And when I started to see and realize what really did it for me, man, is I studied a book called the Sefer Yetzirah. The Sefer Yetzirah, the oldest manuscript they have in the Cairo Museum of this, is carbon dating at around 7,100 years. So it's old. Dude, I kid you not, when you read it, they're all direct quotes that Jesus used. which means this dude was familiar with that book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really started to realize, okay, well, who is Jesus? Jesus was a rabbi. Okay, so that means he had to go to rabbinical school,
Mm-hmm.
because they had that back then.
Yes.
You had to live like he was a Nazarite, so he took the Nazarene vow, and part of being a rabbi, which this is widely ignored. I mean, it's mandate, it's law. You cannot be a rabbi unless you're married.
Huh. Okay.
So there's a lot. Now think about once everything happened, Jesus dies, then all of a sudden the resurrection, everybody accuses of the followers stealing the body, which was not uncommon, because it still happens today. I mean, look, I was watching a documentary on Marie Laveau, the queen of voodoo, and her followers stole her body,
Yeah.
But what came after the Crusades? Well, what was part of what the Crusades were? It was mostly about money. It was mostly about, going and stealing treasures. But what was the first thing they did? They burned the library at Alexandria,
That's right. Yes.
which housed the history of the planet.
Yep.
Not the history of Egypt, the history of the planet. And they wanted it destroyed. Why?
Yeah.
It was erasing history.
Exactly.
And why did they need to
rewrite their own history?
They wanted to rewrite it, because it wasn't until about 120 years later, when the Nicene Creed was built, and they decreed Jesus not as a prophet, not as a man, but as God, as a deity.
And then ignored the other 7 chapters of the New Testament and only picked the 4. Yeah,
that's my whole thing, dude. If Christians dug and really went in, it doesn't make you an atheist. It just makes you more selective and makes you smarter. It makes you start saying, what can I take from this, and then again, like I told you, my first lesson with my rabbi.
Yeah.
It's completely irrelevant whether Adam and Eve existed, whether Jesus existed, whether it's all irrelevant. Yeah. What are you taking from the book, the story, the idea?
Yeah.
And how are you applying it to your life?
Yeah.
Because Jesus said it best. How you treat the least of these people, in other words, the beggar in the street, the shitballs, how you treat those people is how you treat God.
Exactly.
That's Jesus's words. Yeah. Yet it's completely ignored.
Completely.
But dude, that's our struggle. That's humanity's struggle right now. And more importantly, it's Christianity's struggle, because they still don't get those concepts. They still don't understand that gossip and all the bullshit and not being able to trust people and confiding and all this other stuff. It's kind of like when a person says, I have an unspoken prayer request, and then people demand, no, I need to know what to pray for. Bullshit. You want to know what to gossip about over lunch.
Exactly.
Well, I mean,
my saying when I asked me and my mom have talked, I'm like, all right, so if God is all powerful, he's completely right, you know what I mean? He's got your best interest in your life planned out from the second you were born. Why pray? Because then you're telling God his plan is wrong. You know what I mean? Right. Like if I'm sick, please get back. You know what I mean? If that's God's plan for you to get sick and die of cancer, it's a horrible fucking plan. You know what I mean? I think it's a cruel plan. I don't think that's a God that loves anything. I think that's being magnifying glass with an ant. But then why then at that point in time, you really don't have faith in your God's plan, because you're trying to alter it. You know what I mean?
Always. There's so many conflicts and so many contradictions that you just sit and go, huh? Yeah. I mean, one of the greatest that when I first started studying Judaism, and I really do want to get to the smoke, but as do you, but I'll tell you, the one that interested me the most was the Book of Chronicles and the Book of Judges, I believe. It's Chronicles and Kings.
Okay.
They are pretty much identical, except that they were written roughly 110 years apart. And one of them has a very blatant view of light and dark, and one of them has a very blatant view of light and dark, but attributed to one entity, where the other one separates the two.
Okay.
So the pre-Zoroastrian era, remember, the Israelis were in captivity in Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
The main religion there was Zoroastrianism.
Did not know that.
Zoroastrianism is a religion that teaches two deities, a devil and a god.
Okay.
You know, a good god and a bad god. And I can't remember which of it's either Kings or Chronicles, but the one that's written after their captivity now starts mentioning Satan. But the one before that attributes both good and evil to Yahweh, to God.
Yes.
That's why when you read the story of, and God moved the heart of Pharaoh to harden.
Yeah.
See, people don't want to accept that. Why would God harden this man's heart and make this whole thing, you know, to go through the plagues and go through this and go through that? And what it is Judaism teaches very much a yin-yang principle.
Very much so.
That God is both dark and light.
Yeah. Well, the same thing the Egyptians had with Set and Ra. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
The sun would come up and win every day, you know, and then the moon would come up and win the night, you know, and it was the balance of night, you know, light and darkness of the seasons.
But after they learned this Zoroastrianistic experience of there's a good God that everything good is attributed to, and then there's a bad God that everything's attributed to, who's the enemy of the good God. Once they got that, then the appearance of the devil came, and it kind of went down in history, didn't it?
Yeah. That kind of thing. Well, in Luciferianism, you know, the story is where Lucifer is actually, you know, he's also called the Northern Star or the Summer Star. What was it?
Morning Star.
Morning Star. That's it.
Yeah.
But in
Star of the morning.
You know, he's the savior of, in their belief, he's the savior of mankind, because he's down saying, do not be subjected to this. Eat of the fruit. Know what God knows. Do what we have done, and free yourself of these shackles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's, you know, and that's the thing where, you know, Christians, you would say that and they would be like, there's no way because he's Satan. Well, you know, there's always the duality of two stories, you know what I mean? And the fact that he wants to read, you know, even, you know, I had somebody ask me this the other day. They said, if God showed himself to me today to be real, boom, he's here, God, would you still bend your knee? And I personally said, no, I still couldn't. And they go, why? Because he's proven he's real. I go, just because he's real doesn't mean I think he's just or fair. You know what I mean? Sure. Just because he's God doesn't mean I think that he's a good God. You know, and I'm not talking Jesus, so I'm talking God. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, when I really first started really thinking about walking away was I had, it was probably freshman year, and we did a very in-depth study of the Holocaust. And just to see what God's people went through, there was the one thing that really got me was there was a guy on his bunk that had passed away from starvation, and he had carved in the wall next to his bunk, if there is a God, he should get down on his knees and beg our forgiveness. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, looking at the story of Job and of Cain and whatnot, and you're thinking, this God is not loving. This God is jealous. This God is vengeful. This God is mean. You have children. I have children. You know what I mean? I didn't create my children to put them in situations where they have to be dependent on me my whole life. You know what I mean? Like, I want the best for them. I would never, kill my daughter's family just to see if she loved me or prove her devotion to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that the Christian person that asked me that, they really had to think about it. I go, even if God did reveal himself, I still wouldn't follow him because I think he's wrong. I think he's bad. You know what I mean? I don't think that he's what a loving God would be.
There's a fair amount of truth to that, because it's funny, I'm always reminded of something I don't know if you watched that movie Contact with Jodie Foster.
Yeah, good movie.
Oh, it's a great movie. But I love the line where they're talking about, we can't build that machine. What if it's an alien Trojan horse, and out pops all these aliens, and and she's like, why are we assuming that these aliens are hostile? I find it inconceivable that they would send these plans billions of light years away just to come up and harm us. It would like for us to go out all the way to Africa to smash an anthill.
Yeah.
And what the other scientist says is the best line. That's funny that you say that, because how guilty would we feel if we went all the way to Africa just to smash an anthill?
Truth.
Whew.
Yeah.
All right. I think we'll leave it there.
That's a good ending. That's just my whole purpose of life, man. Just read, explore, know. You know what I mean? And if Christianity's the path that you walk on, at least do it with kindness. You know what I mean? At least do it.
That's what I'm saying. At least obey the Jesus that you say you follow.
Exactly.
He says to love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and spirit, and love your neighbor as yourself. Treat the least of these as if you were treating God that way.
Exactly.
And you know what? If we had that, we'd have a lot more people converting.
Yeah. And we wouldn't be having this conversation. You know what I mean? Because you actually see the love of Jesus through people. And, I will say there's this all, and then I'll let you go. If there really was a Christian, I believe that there was one, and it was my grandmother, who on my mom's side, she was Colby, Kansas, very small town, never wanted to go anywhere. You know what I mean? Small town, loved her church. And she made like $400 a month on Social Security. She gave to the 700 Club. She gave to Benny Hinn. She gave to her own church, and she gave to somebody else. And this funny story, when she first met my wife is, tattooed, pink hair, and whatnot. And so she's talking to my grandmother, and my grandmother goes, well, honey, do you believe in Jesus? And my wife is like, well, no, Grandma, I don't believe in Jesus. And not in a judging way, but like in the most sincere way, that she wanted somebody that she loved to be with her for eternity, grabbed her hand and goes, well, honey, then you're going to go to hell. You know what I mean? But it wasn't in a, you're going to hell. It
wasn't like, judgmental. Right.
I love you. You love my grandson. Please take this so that we can all be in eternity, paradise forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was concern.
Yeah.
It was concern. It was love. It wasn't judging. Yeah.
So
I love that. Now, but those kind of sincere people are so hard to reach and meet.
Yeah. So if everybody was like my grandma, I'd have no problem with Christians.
Exactly.
Jimmy, I thank you again, man. I appreciate your time, and man,
please stay in touch, man.
Oh, well, after I get it all edited and whatnot, I'm gonna upload it to my channel, and I'll send you a link so that you can rewatch it and
awesome.
Hopefully spread the word to the other Christian musicians.
Oh yeah, I'll promote it on my YouTube channel.
Cool. But I definitely want to talk to Jim. You know what I mean? At some point in time. So
yeah, that one's gonna be tough, because he will not do anything about if you mention the crucified.
Well, I'm cool with that. I can talk about the blamed and the tooth and nail era of the Christian scene, because that's about the time where I was almost in my 20s. You know what I mean? Like I went to school with Tim Mann from Focused. I went to school with Chad Wiggins from Officer Negative.
Oh, no kidding. That's hilarious.
I went to school with Jason Martin from Starflyer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's cool.
But yeah, this was kind of the genesis of the music I got into. Before all that was Christian, extreme Christian metal. That's awesome.
Point.
So
that's awesome.
again,
Well,
man,
I'll try talking to Jim.
I'll reach out to him, especially after hopefully he sees this and he'll be like, all right, this guy's not a weirdo. You know what I mean?
He'll be cooler, I think, about it. Yeah.
Jimmy, thank you, man. I just, even though we disagree on philosophy, man, like your band was a big part of my youth. You know what I mean? A big part of
Sure.
me in my room. I'm a bass player. I'm not that good. I'll never be amazing. You know what I mean? But sitting there trying to figure out the songs and and like always envisioning what my band would be like. You know what I mean? And that kind of stuff. So
right on, man.
Sitting in my room, at 2 a.m. listening to Weapons, reading comic books. You know what I mean?
That's cool. That's cool.
So, man, thank you, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, bro. Like I said, stay in touch, man.
Will do, amigo.
All right, brother. Love and light. You have a good vacation.
I will, man. I'm going to Arkansas, so we'll see what's up.
All right. Sounds good, bro.
All right. Take care, buddy.